In other words, oh God, sorry, Charlotte. Maybe that's a clap.
Is that enough of a clap, or is it going to be a bit fudded?
Okay, I'm stopping. Here we go. Pod 298.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson, Richard James, and Chris Dale.
Okay, we'll start
happy?
now. Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Got that off your chest?
That was me landing Thunderbird 2, in case you were wondering.
I wondered.
The sound effect was pretty good, wasn't it?
I think the sound effect needs a bit more work. You need to get a bit closer to the mic and you need to do this kind of thing.
Oh, hang on. Let's stop. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah.
No, you're doing it.
Oh, I'm doing it?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Right, let's know
just
that
put it
again.
down. Let's
Okay.
move on. Anyway, Gerry Anderson Podcast.
I've landed Thunderbird
You've
2.
landed Thunderbird 2.
I'm Jamie Anderson.
I'm Richard James.
No.
That's tricky for me because I have to put those our names.
So we have to leave them there for a bit.
Yeah. That'll be fine. Right.
Okay, and that over there is Chris Dale.
Hello, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, guys.
Now, he must be here because he's doing the randomiser a little later on. And that's when he sits down in front of a random episode of a Gerry Anderson series and gives us his thoughts and comments.
Yep.
Right.
Good, yeah. And I must be here because I get a book of Fab Facts every week and I flick through it and then read a Fab Fact.
Right. And I must be here to shout fab as you flick through the book.
Brilliant. And to do the interview.
Yes, of course.
And the interview this week is with...
Well, we're mixing it up a bit this week because
Are
we have
we?
not only just one interviewee,
Yes.
but two.
Is that mixing it up?
Well, we've got Morgan Jeffery and Tom Eames from the Two Geeks, Two Beers podcast.
Excellent. So it's a kind of a crossover.
It's a kind of crossover. So I'll be talking to them about, what they look for in a TV series. They are self-confessed geeks.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask them, what does that mean exactly? What's a geek?
Quite
these
philosophical,
days?
that, isn't it?
Yeah. What's a geek as opposed to a nerd, for example?
Ooh.
Yeah.
I do remember there being a differentiator.
Excellent. Well, I shall ask them that later.
I can't
Something
remember.
to look forward to, isn't it?
Very exciting, yes. This
Also,
week,
yeah.
in the dictionary definition corner, yeah.
Also, Podsterons, our lovely viewers and listeners, have been emailing us at podcast@gerryanderson.com, and we shall be reading out their emails too a little later on.
Good idea.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Should we crack on?
What, with a Fab Fact?
Well, yeah.
Okay, fine. Oh, by the way,
Yeah.
just in case you're wondering,
yes.
we're not giving the AI my job, so I'm still going to be here for the
For
foreseeable
now.
future.
For the
Is that
foreseeable
all right?
future. Yeah, foreseeable future.
Good.
The operative
Okay.
phrase.
Good.
Off you go.
Here comes a Fab Fact.
Now, time for this week's Fab Facts.
Don't look so happy about it.
Oh, what? The AI taking over from you?
No, the Fab Fact.
Oh, I see, yes.
Yeah, book of Fab Facts.
Yeah.
I flick. Richard shouts Fab.
Yeah.
I read the Fab Fact. Are we ready? Here we go.
Fab!
Oh, that's halfway through one. Hang on.
Oh,
Okay, that's fine.
okay.
I just turned back to the start.
Yeah, fair
of the
enough.
Same one.
Yeah.
Oh, this one is one of those ones that addresses you directly.
That's so strange.
Yeah. Richard,
Yes, Fab Facts book?
thank you. Do you want to put on a voice? No, I'm not.
Yes,
the
an
voice
Australian
of the
accent.
That is absolutely not happening.
Oh.
Richard, I'm sure you're aware of Dad's antipathy towards Doctor Who.
The book is sure I'm aware.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a sentient book, all right?
Fine. Yes,
and it's
I am.
assuming you're also sentient.
Yeah.
So you are aware of Dad's antipathy towards
Yes.
Doctor Who. Good.
Yes.
And if you saw our recent podcast with Sadie Miller,
Oh, yeah.
which I'm sure you will have done,
Yeah.
you will also know he was particularly exasperated by my love, that's me, not the book,
Yeah.
of the aforementioned long-running science fiction fantasy series.
Yes.
So how do you think he would feel if he had known that maybe, just maybe, he and his shows were indirectly responsible for Doctor Who's astonishing success?
That would be an irony, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Go on.
Well, how, you might ask, is he responsible
Yes.
for Doctor Who's astonishing success indirectly?
Yes, I don't know.
Well, Paul Hayes' book, Pull to Open,
Yeah.
the genesis of Doctor Who, using original documents and transcripts of interviews from the time, starts with a BBC folder from early 1963 labelled Doctor Who, General.
Right.
And covering the period of time up until the Daleks' first appearance in the series, it tells how the show was doing okay,
Yeah.
but certainly not knocking anyone's socks off until the appearance of the now ubiquitous Pepper Potts.
Yes, we know
known as
that.
the Daleks,
and the
right?
nation went Dalek mad.
Yes, indeed.
That's right.
But what does Gerry Anderson have to do with that?
Well, quite.
Well,
Yes.
Paul explains. As they slid onto screens for their first full television appearance, the Daleks faced a greater variety of competition than Doctor Who had previously.
Right.
The ITV network was split up into regions, which it seemed were quite at liberty to show whatever they wanted. And so it was that both the Anglia and Tyne Tees regions opted to show reruns of an Anderson show that had only made its debut the previous year, Fireball XL5.
Right.
While ABC in the Midlands and North showed the Anderson-esque Space Patrol from Roberta Lee.
Yeah, okay.
Both were shows that the public had seen before and fairly recently too. So Paul goes on. Things could hardly have been better for the debut of the Daleks. Whether ITV having a single new network programme in opposition to Doctor Who at this point would have made a difference is impossible to say. But the fact that the franchises were collectively putting up such a mixed bag against Doctor Who and the Daleks at this vital moment certainly can't have done any harm.
Oh, I see.
So, is it the greatest irony of Dad's career that the fact that the screenings of his old shows helped to secure the longevity of the very show he hated is a bit of a strong word, Fab Facts, but I'll say disliked.
Yes.
Are there any Podsterons out there who remember this clash of the televisual titans and maybe opted to watch a rerun of an Anderson show they loved over this strange new show offered by the BBC? And if so, would you do it again?
Oh.
Do let us know. Podcast at gerryanderson.com.
Ah, right. Do you remember that original? Yes. Okay. So as the Daleks.
I don't.
No, I don't either. No. Not that old.
No.
But
we're
some of our
middle-aged,
listeners
you
are.
see.
Yes. Yeah. And some of our viewers are. So
yes,
you can bet some of them would have watched Fireball XL5 rather than Doctor Who.
Well, if they've already seen both of those shows, well, either of those shows rather, because they couldn't be seeing both.
No.
Then they'd be saying, "Well, I've already seen that, so I'll watch this." Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe it did help.
Yes.
With so few things to choose from.
That's right. Exactly.
Gosh.
Yeah. 2 channels then, probably in those days.
Yeah.
Just the 2. Yeah. Great. Oh, I like that. Yeah. Nice. Excellent.
you?
But what would you prefer to watch, Jamie?
What, between Fireball XL5, Space Patrol, or the Daleks?
Yeah.
Probably the Daleks, I'm afraid to say.
Yeah, really.
I don't think that's unfair to say, as a Doctor Who fan.
Yeah.
And,
but would you rather watch a new Gerry Anderson or a new Doctor Who? That's the point.
well, that's...
Had it been a new Gerry Anderson...
That's tricky.
Where would you have gone?
Yeah, I mean, if Stingray had been a year earlier...
Yeah.
That,
or Space Precinct 30 years earlier.
Yes.
Then.
Yeah. I mean, if they'd been showing Space Precinct in 1963, I think everybody would have been really freaked out.
They would have been.
Those animatronics have come a long way in a very short time.
Yes, that's right. And I would now be a very old man.
You would be. There's a thought.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there we are. Well done, Dad, for inadvertently possibly helping Doctor Who to become the success it is today.
Yes.
Yeah, he wouldn't be very happy about that.
No.
Good. That brings us slightly awkwardly.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Right.
Fab Facts book.
Yeah.
To the end of this week's Dalek Facts. Thank goodness.
Yes. Yeah. Had to be.
2 weeks in a row. Yeah, but you say had to be. Quite often we disagree on the had to be.
Oh, we've done all right recently.
Well, for the last 2.
Yeah. You're watching and perhaps even listening to the Gerry Anderson podcast.
Well, if you're watching, you're definitely listening.
Yeah, true.
Unless you've got the sound off and you're watching the captions. That's weird.
No, it's not weird. Might be doing the hoovering or...
While watching the captions. Anyway, whatever you're consuming, however you're consuming us, thanks very much and hello.
But what I mean to say is leave us a review or a rating, because it's always nice to know how we're getting on with our viewers and listeners, what they think of the show.
Yes. Have you seen any recently?
No.
No. I need to do a stop. Right, I'm just going to have a look and see if there are any.
Okay, while you do that, could you just vacate the chair, because I've got a couple of guests coming in a minute and I need to interview them.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
that's all right.
I'll do that now.
Bye. Tom and Morgan are 2 mates who love talking nonsense about pop culture while also enjoying a beer. They've taken their drunken ramblings from the pub to the studio to teach each other about all kinds of films, TV shows, video games and more. From 80s cartoons to 90s kids shows, action film franchises to cult games, they'll chat about anything remotely geek related. It's Morgan, Jeffery and Tom Eames. Welcome, both of you, to wonderful Slough.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
First time you've ventured this far west?
I've never been to Slough.
I've been to Slough before, about 10, 12 years ago, something like that.
It's
I
taken
remember
you-
nothing about it.
Taking you all that time to come back.
But never been to the Thunderbirds themed
No.
hotel.
Yeah,
very,
well,
very cool.
That was
Isn't
very
it?
exciting.
Yeah, great. Well, it's fantastic to have you on the Gerry Anderson podcast. A bit of a sort of a mashup we're having this
Pod
week.
smash.
Yeah, pod smash. Tell us a little bit, Tom, about Two Geeks, Two Beers.
Well, it was a podcast that we decided to do, how long ago now?
Almost 10
Nearly
years
10
ago.
years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we we realised that all we do is, back then and now, is be at the pub whinging about various just pop culture nonsense. And she thought, well, put it into some kind of podcast.
Perhaps someone might want to listen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And amazingly, about 10 people have, which is good.
Is it the same 10 people every week, do you think? Or
well,
There's some churn.
So,
Yeah.
But yeah, so the show is basically just, normally it's one of us teaching the other one about a topic.
Yes.
Yeah, we would spend a lot of our time at the pub sharing a beer. Well, a beer each, not one beer.
Yeah. 2 straws.
Yeah, talking about TV shows and films and games that we loved. And we thought, well, that'll be fun. Maybe we can turn that into a podcast and create some of that kind of pub vibe.
Yeah.
But also, sometimes you would be really passionate about something that I had no idea about, and vice versa. So we thought, we can kind of, be a little exchange of ideas as well.
Right.
A little mini history lesson each time.
Nice.
Which
I like it.
veers off into drunken.
I mean, that sounds far more educational than the Gerry Anderson podcast ever was or will be. I
Nonsense,
think.
you have Fab Facts. Every
That's true, we
single
do. Now, so let's take that word. Morgan, can you explain to me what is, in your opinion, a geek? What makes a geek?
I think it's because I think historically it has had some negative connotations, that word. But I think we've reclaimed it. And
it's quite in vogue now, isn't it?
yeah, well, I think it's just someone who's passionate about something.
Okay.
And I think part of that turnaround has been the way the internet has changed those kind of discussions, and social media definitely has its negatives and its positives. But one of the positives is that you can find other people who are passionate about the same things that you are.
Yeah.
So when I was younger and I was a fan of Gerry Anderson or Doctor Who or any of these various things, I didn't really know anyone. There was no one at my school who was into the same sort of stuff. So you kind of hid that side of you away, those passions. But now I think the internet, you can kind of, whether it's forums or social media or any of those things, you can reach out and find like-minded people.
Yeah.
So it has become more of a positive thing, I think.
We actually have a running gag on our show sometimes, though, that are we a geek sometimes? Because the whole point is we don't know, one of us doesn't know something, or there's a film I haven't seen.
Okay.
Have you never seen it?
Yeah, call yourself a geek?
Yeah, exactly. We each have
I'll
our
probably prove that today.
yeah. We each have our areas that we're passionate about, but then also gaping holes in our geek knowledge.
Right.
So
Okay.
It's an ongoing
Always
education.
Always learning.
Interesting. Well, we might put that to the test a little bit now, because it's time for us to play a little game. Just to suss out your Gerry Anderson knowledge. We call it super identification. So on the screen here, you're going to see just a few moments from every opening title of every Gerry Anderson series. Right. And I want you to see how many you can guess. So as you see them, if you know them, shout them out. Okay.
Right. Well, there are 2 of us, so we should
You'd think
technically
so.
have an advantage.
You'd think
but,
so. Right, let's see.
shambles.
Let's see. Off we go.
Okay. Twizzle.
Oh, very good. Good start.
Torch in the Battery
Yes, yes, well done.
Fall for the Force. Yeah, Fall for the Force.
Supercar.
You're doing very well.
5 by 5, that theme song.
Stand by for action.
Has to be. Yeah, okay. So glad you got that one.
Kind of a given.
Captain Scarlet.
Okay, so you know your Supermarination stuff. Good.
Joe 90.
Yeah.
Secret Service.
Secret Service.
Right.
Yeah, that one.
Oh, UFO.
UFO, yeah. Protectors?
I mean, you're cooking on gas.
This is an emergency.
Hey, here we go. Right.
Dick Spanner.
Yes.
Space Precinct.
The place of legend.
Lavender Castle. New Captain Scarlet. Yeah.
Well, that's it. Well, amazing. There you go.
Prove
So-
our geek knowledge.
We did have an advantage going. There were 2 of us.
Yeah, there were
Yeah.
2 of
I
you,
don't know if
but...
we would've- yeah.
Okay, and to celebrate the fact that we have 2 of you today, here you
Oh,
are.
wow.
That's amazing.
Special 2 Geeks, 2 Beers Thunderbirds characters. I mean, of course, out of 18 of them, you got all 18 right between you. But, as you said, there are 2 of you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
slightly.
So I'm going to give you
Sort of
9.
cheating.
Going to halve it.
No, come on.
That's how harsh I
That
am.
is savage.
There it is. But
We'll take
let's
it,
face
we'll
it, I'll
take
stick it there. I mean, you are beating Ronnie LaDrew, the voice of Zippy, quite by some way, so that's
wow.
not too bad, is it? Yeah, well done. So, I mean, there were no gaps there at all, really. I did sense sometimes that you were kind of following each other's lead. Were there some there that were more tricky than others for either of you?
Well, it goes back to us having that those gaps in our knowledge, and that you will know stuff that I don't know about. So the first ever episode we did of Two Geeks, Two Beers, the podcast, was about Terrorhawks, and that was coming on to 10 years ago now. And at the time, I had never seen a single episode of Terrorhawks. Tom was a massive, massive fan, and so was kind of filling me in. And since then, I've kind of, caught up.
Yeah.
Nice.
Whereas you're much more knowledgeable about me, about the live action stuff, like Space 99.
Space 1999.
Okay.
You're more Super Marionation, Super Macronation guy.
Have you now seen all of the series? Or an example from all of the series, if not all the episodes.
I can't claim to have seen every single episode of everything.
Yeah. Oh, well, kindly leave now.
You've not seen episode 7? Or?
I haven't binge watched Torchy, but I think we've probably each seen an episode of every single series, and some. We've seen
multiple times.
Every single.
Oh, I see. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not so hot on Lavender Castle, though, I've got to say.
No, that's probably.
Well, we might have a question or two on Lavender Castle a bit later on from our viewers and listeners who have been sending in some questions that we'll pose a little later. Now, Morgan, eagle-eyed listeners and viewers will recognise you from a previous appearance on the Gerry Anderson podcast.
This guy again.
So they will know your association then, I think, with Digital Spy, and now with Radio Times.
Well, I used
to be. Had you started Radio Times then?
I think I'd made the crossover.
Right.
Yeah. So I was previously the TV editor at Digital Spy, which is a news and entertainment website for anyone who doesn't know, for about 10 years, and then I moved across to RadioTimes.com, and I'm now the editor of the website. But that's just a hobby. Two Geeks, Two Beers is my my life, my passion.
Are you one of those lucky people then that have found an occupation that is their hobby?
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Like the stuff I'm passionate about is entertainment, is TV, is films, is games, and I am very lucky that has in some ways become my living and my passion.
Yeah. And Tom, what on earth do you do?
Well, actually, I used to work at Digital Spy as well,
Which is where we met.
I see.
And then, so I was a features writer there, so on TV and all that kind of thing. But then I did a master's in radio years and years ago, so I've always wanted to work in that side of things. And now I am the digital editor of Smooth Radio and Gold at Global.
Okay.
If you love your George Michaels and
who doesn't?
Yeah. So very similar to
Taxi
you,
FM, as my wife calls it.
Yeah. Although if you ever hear Magic, you have to turn it.
Yeah, that's right.
And so it's kind of the same thing, but more on the music end of the spectrum. So I think we're just both obsessed with pop culture and any kind of sphere.
What he's driving at is that he does a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to the Two Geeks, Two Beers podcast.
Well, I mean, that sounds very familiar.
Yeah, he does all the audio recording and editing.
Yeah.
I just turn up.
Now, so what would our viewers and listeners expect to hear and see if they tuned into a Two Geeks, Two Beers podcast?
A drunken mess. we normally go for at least one pint. We don't do it while recording anymore. We used to. We're a bit more professional outfit now, sort of. But yeah, the thing is, we like to try and do a different topic that's quite different to the previous episode each time. So 1 minute we'll be doing Animals Are Filing Wood, and then we'll be doing, what was it, Generation X?
So what you need for a successful podcast
is
to have
tell me.
is to have a very clear niche and to identify that niche.
Sure.
So what we thought we'd do is have it about something completely different every single week.
I know. We always joke that if we did it again now, it'd
be totally different.
Of course.
Because we're appealing to a different audience every week, or appealing to no one. But no, it is very kind of, some weeks it will be about a film that we're very nostalgic about. Some weeks it's a TV show. Some weeks it's a game.
Yeah.
I say week. We don't put them out every week.
Okay.
We're that efficient. It's every month or so. We put out a new episode.
And I suppose then Gerry Anderson was bound to, or is going to feature at some point.
Absolutely.
Have you touched on many of his programs yet? Or?
So the first episode was terrible. So we actually want to do a redux, if you will, of that, because it's been so long since we did it. If we listen to it now, it'd be very embarrassing.
Yeah.
We had obviously Jamie come on the show as well, which was brilliant.
Yeah.
We could do an episode on all of the Gerry
we could and should. So stay tuned. There'll be more Gerry Anderson themed episodes in the future, no question.
And so thinking of the Gerry Anderson shows, and that's why we're here, of course, Gerry Anderson podcast.
Yeah.
How can you place Gerry's series in the context of the sort of stuff that you watch? Is it, in terms of quality, is it a nostalgic kick, or do you think the series still have things to offer today?
Well, I suppose a big chunk of it, and the other thing we like is the nostalgia angle. It sort of harking back to a different time. And I think for me, growing up, for whatever reason, puppets in general just connected with me. I think there's so many of my favourite things, whether it's Labyrinth or even things like Fireman Sam, where it's not puppets, but that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or, I remember watching those old Pinky and Perky shows from the 60s and had a VHS of that. But I think there's just something about that which taps into maybe, I don't know if it's just our era or still.
I think it's partly nostalgia, but I also think nostalgia only does so much of the heavy lifting, and something still needs to be good to engage. And we didn't watch those shows when they first went out. We watched them in the early 90s.
Of course, yeah,
and they had to compete with modern shows.
Yeah.
But the fact that they did, I think, is testament to how much hard work and effort went into crafting those shows, and the fact that there was such a kind of high bar for quality. That you can watch clips now and they still, the effects still stand up quite often. The performances still stand up. The writing.
Yeah. And when did you become aware of sort of Gerry Anderson as a producer, as a name? When you were watching those early shows, were you able to attach the name Gerry Anderson to Terror Hawks, or did it sort of pass you by until later?
I think it's because it's such big, bright letters, isn't it? I think I didn't. Maybe when I was a kid, I didn't know necessarily who he was until later.
You knew the name.
Yeah, because pre-internet, you didn't have all that information at hand. But he was like, who's this? Like spearheading the whole thing.
Yeah. I think I was, as you say, you might not be aware of like the man necessarily, but you knew the name and you sort of knew the brand, even though you probably didn't think of it that way when you were. But definitely later in life, like there are certain things like Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet and Stingray. I think more so the Supermarionation stuff that you would more readily associate with him. And then I think there were shows that I'd heard of, but didn't necessarily know they were part of the stable. Yeah. So I think even when I watched Space Precinct for the first time, I maybe didn't make the connection that it's the guy who did Thunderbirds and all those previous shows.
And of course it was so different. The live action shows are so different from the likes of Joe 90 and Captain Scarlet.
Yeah.
That, it's the breadth of the storytelling and
but still with the common elements, which is that sense of adventure and the great characters and quite often the technology. And
I was just always amazed at how many they were able to churn out and all the different worlds within each show.
Well, 18 opening title sequences we just showed you.
How did you have time to come up with all those stories?
Well, I've always said if someone had created, if Gerry had only created Thunderbirds or only created Space 1999, he would still be held up as this incredible creative force. To have made that many.
It's like Prince, like just an album every year, at least one.
The Prince of cult TV
absolutely.
movies.
Now, I asked you in our email exchange earlier in the week to furnish me with some early Anderson memories. So, Morgan, we're going to start with you, and we're going to have a look at what you were watching as a wee Morgan Jeffery. Take a look at this.
You don't stand a chance. You throw your gun away, and I'll come in and pick you both up.
You heard him, Scarlet. Do what he says.
Okay, Captain Scarlet. It's either gonna be you or me.
There we go, the climax to the first episode of Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons.
The car view there, the most impractical parking structure there's ever been.
No, we don't talk about that. So your first Anderson memory. So how old would you have been the first time you saw Captain Scarlet?
I think it was repeats, obviously, in the early 90s. Yeah. It was maybe like 92, 93.
Right,
it was
okay.
repeated.
Yeah.
Someone might correct me, but so I would have been 6 or 7.
Okay.
Yeah, 8 at the most, I think.
And you were very specific in your email to me about the moment that Captain Scarlet's expression on his face having been shot and falling.
Yeah, well, it's those moments. I obviously had watched the whole episode, but it's certain moments that stick with you, I think, like visceral images that get burned into your brain when you're younger.
Yeah.
And I specifically remember the puppet's face changing when he gets shot, and the horrible grimace, and then that chilling, blood-curdling scream as he... Because I think as a kid, you don't like to be, or I didn't like to be talked down to. So anything that felt a bit grown up was exciting. Yeah. So when you saw someone get shot and pull a horrible face and plummet to their death, and it was like, whoa, this is great. This is thrilling. Yeah.
That's right. Well, Sadie Miller, who was a previous guest, was talking about the feeling of feeling fear in safety.
Yes.
In a safe environment is an important thing for kids.
Yeah. And
a seminal moment, perhaps.
And Doctor Who, I think, does the same thing did the same thing for a lot of its fans, which is those safe scares. It's not full-blooded horror movie scares that keep you up at night. It's those fun behind-the-sofa scares.
That's right. But more of a fan of the live-action stuff, you say, Morgan. So... is there a reason? How do you feel about the puppets, the marionettes?
No, I mean, I love it all, and I'm a big fan of the super... I'd say I probably... I was into the 60s stuff, so definitely Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons, probably my favourite of all the Anderson series. Space Precinct, because it was the first... I think I had some knowledge of the fact that Captain Scarlet and Thunderbirds were not as good as they looked. They weren't new shows. Sure. So my parents would say, "Oh, I used to watch those."
Yes.
Space Precinct was the first Anderson show that felt like it was for me because it was new at the time.
And do you remember anything of sort of the buzz around it? Do you remember the trailers for the new series, or did you just kind of stumble across it?
I think I might have just stumbled across it, but I certainly remember it being a big deal on the BBC at the time. I felt like this was this big flagship, big budget, which it was, show, and there was a lot of fuss being made around it at the time.
I had Space Precinct Pogs.
Yes.
The Pogs.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's the most 90s thing ever, Space Precinct and Pogs.
What even were Pogs? What did you do with Pogs? Were they like tiddlywinks? Or did you just collect them? Or what were they? They were flicking or tapping?
You're meant to, but it was a game where you had...
You've got me started now, you went,
we did a whole Pogs episode.
We did a whole episode about Pogs.
Essentially bits of cardboard, a slammer, and then you were meant to do...
Wow.
Yeah. But no one played it, did they?
No. So you had an Officer Oren Pogs? Did you have Officer Oren Pogs?
Oh, maybe. Who knows? You'd go to like the Arndale Centre on a Saturday. And
sounds amazing.
It was like very dodgy dealings going on, but I miss those days.
Swapping Pogs at the Arndale Centre.
Now, we do have some questions in our Space 1999 lunchbox.
Nice. Wow.
Very,
incredible.
Very kindly sent in from some of our listeners and viewers. So there are two of you, so just reach in and maybe take a couple each for now, and then we'll do a couple each again next week.
There we go.
Thank you.
See how we go. All right, one more for you then, Morgan.
Okay.
That's it. Right, Morgan, after you then.
Oh, okay. Wow. So Jonathan Bell says, this is a very specific question, what's our favourite lager each? What's your favourite lager?
Okay.
Or I guess we can open it up to be beers more generally.
Yeah, well, people, this is where people sort of lose respect. Cause
the other thing...
This is where they lose respect.
if they're still here.
The other thing you need for a successful podcast is a very clear brand, great branding.
Right.
And most people think we host a craft beer podcast. So again, it's not...
Yeah,
it would not be
I
called
can see
that
that.
now.
No, we would rename it and it would be about something totally different.
Right, but apart from that...
Apart from that, it's a huge success.
Thing is, I'm quite partial to John Smith's.
Oh, okay.
Which isn't a lager, I know.
No, it isn't.
I'm going for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go. I quite like a Heineken.
Yeah. You are, don't you?
Yeah, but these are the kind of insights that people tune to the Gerry Anderson podcast for.
Don't worry, I'll cut all this.
But there you go. That's that one.
Excellent. Okay, Tom.
Okay.
Who do you have there?
This is from James Pilson Wood.
Oh yes.
Why do you think cartoons from the 80s and 90s have far better theme songs than anything from the 2000s onwards?
Yeah.
I think it's because of the rise of streaming, and in particular that option you now have to skip intro. You would see that shows now quite often they would why invest all that time and money into great title sequences, great theme songs of the sort that Barry Gray used to write when people could just...
They used to be the hook to bring you in, but now they're disposable, aren't they?
Well, I remember the day, it was when like 24 and Lost were big and they just didn't have theme songs.
Yeah.
That was praise.
So I think, I think they just, for whatever reason, they were like, we've got to fit in so much stuff in the next 40 odd minutes or whatever. But they just didn't think that
it's a loss, though.
Yeah.
And why do they stay with us for so long? I mean, I remember theme tunes in particular from shows I was watching in the 70s and and 80s. So why is it that those songs stay with us?
I think it's just a different time, I guess. I think back in like even 70s, 80s, even for like films, you'd have like big songs from the film that would be part of it. That'd be part of the successful film. They'd release the main single.
Even into the 90s.
Yeah, well into the 90s. But for whatever reason, that fell out of fashion, and it might have just seemed a bit naff after a certain while. But I think that we miss that now. I think it's proven, Barbie just proved that you can do it.
Right.
So I think, I don't think we talk about Barbie today. But,
I thought.
But yeah, it is a lost art, and I think TV and film, I think we miss it.
Yeah. Another question there,
What
Morgan?
we've got here. Michael Morris says, "Are you planning a Rainbow Bright episode?" We weren't, but we can.
If there's demand for it.
Yeah.
Well, there obviously is.
Yeah.
We've
got at least one listener, which is one more than we normally have.
Well, tell us about Rainbow Bright, for those of us that don't know. Do you know?
Well, wasn't it the equivalent of He-Man? For girls at the time?
Oh, right,
That's
okay.
She-Ra, isn't it?
Well, it's She-Ra, isn't it? I remember my sister having Rainbow Bright dolls.
Right, okay.
That's all I can remember.
Okay.
So, but we'll look into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
This will be one where neither of us knows about it.
That's right.
And we'll learn as we go.
Yeah.
Which we have done before, which is even more of a drunken channel.
What is your sort of criteria for choosing shows? Is it the more obscure the better, or not necessarily?
Yeah, I think it's just as long as it's got that kind of passionate geekiness to it. We've really stretched that. Like I did an episode on The Lake House of Keanu Reeves once.
Right.
Just because genuinely one of his favourite films.
Okay.
But so kind of anything goes. The longer we go on.
I think having some sort of nostalgia around it is important. So that can be something that has a really clear kind of like sci-fi angle to it.
Yeah.
But also we did an episode about Live and Kicking from the 1990s, which was the kind of Saturday morning.
That's right. Magazine
program. Because a lot of people our age do have really fond memories of that show. So I think nostalgia is the main thing.
Yeah. Another question there, Tom?
Yeah, this is from Paul Hyder. Geek used to be an insult. What changed?
Well, kind of covered that. I think it's the fact that people have kind of found their geek tribe, and you don't feel like you have to be. It was used maybe as an insult, but now people are proud to be geeks, and I think
shows like weirdly like Big Bang Theory kind of helped with that in a weird way. Well, maybe it did a little bit, but I think it kind of put that sort of thing into the mainstream, and some people lurched down to that kind of
But we
thing.
still yet to reclaim the word nerd.
Yeah.
That still needs
there's
a
a
bit
reason
more work.
it's not 2 nerds, 2 beers.
It does have a different angle to it.
Yeah. Maybe that's next.
Yeah.
Right, well, so we looked at your first Anderson memory, Morgan. Tom, we'll turn our attention to you now and see what first caught your attention from the Anderson universe.
Awesome.
There he is.
Why is he smiling? I look miserable.
So good. It's technically not even Gerry Anderson.
It's not.
It counts. It shouldn't be that good.
I mean, that's the first time we've had a video I don't sting as the first Anderson. Explain yourself.
Well, it's what young people say. It goes far harder than it needs to.
So this was I guess I was probably about 7 or 8 or even younger, where I think we were in some sort of shopping centre in Poole, Dorset.
I mean, what a life you live.
Spent his entire childhood in
always in
shopping
that Arndale
centre.
And we bought 2 Terrorhawks VHSs, and the beginning of it starts with that. And so I only watched the same episodes of Terrorhawks over and over again.
Yes.
Loved it.
Yeah.
But I knew I was in for a good time when that started up. And it's just something, I don't even know what Channel 5 is. Did they just do VHSs?
Just distributor.
That's absolutely right. That's right, yeah.
But that was just the excitement level building into the next album.
Genuinely, I get in my butterflies.
Takes you right back, doesn't it? Yeah, that's right.
Again, you know, kids these days miss out on things like that. They don't have VHSs like that. So
you don't have that before a streaming show, do you?
And then what do you remember specifically about Terrorhawks, if anything, from those early days?
I mean, it just...
and what was it that grabbed you so much about it?
Well, straight in, you got Tiger Einstein going, stay on this channel, this is an emergency. And the theme music is just, I'd say, I'm biased, but I say it's the best of all the Gerry Anderson shows. It's so catchy, but I just think it just felt like the modern at the time, 80s equivalent of Thunderbirds and following Star Wars and all that kind of thing. And I just loved the characters, loved the humour attached to it, and I think just as a kid, I seemed to gravitate towards more sci-fi stuff. Like I used to watch Red Dwarf at the time. Even though I didn't really understand the jokes as a 7-year-old, but it was the same kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And just loved it.
And what about Terrorhawks now? Does it still stand the test of time, do you think, in any ways?
Because that's the thing. I only watched those, it's probably about 8 episodes on those 2 VHSs.
Yeah.
And about 10, 15 years later, I finally saw the rest. It was so exciting.
Okay.
Like, oh my God, there's loads
of episodes.
And I will watch it now, and it still holds up. And it is just... And I'm sure it's a lot of it's the nostalgia attached to it.
Yeah.
I got you the Big Finish
set
for your birthday.
Yeah, those are great as well.
Jamie.
Vinyl as well.
Excellent.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Excellent. There's a difference, of course, in the puppetry from the Super Marionation days to the Super Macromation. What do you think of that? Was it a successful leap, do you think, or...?
I think it was. I don't know if everyone agrees, but I know there's a certain vintageness to the Thunderbirds era.
Yeah.
But I suppose that's what I grew up with. But
yeah.
I like the way that the puppets' expressions in Terrorhawks look.
Yeah.
And the way, especially characters like Zelda and how terrifying, such terrifying creatures in Terrorhawks that turn up.
That's right.
So yeah, I think that was great.
Yeah.
And a great lineage there with Denise Breyer doing the voice of Zelda, who was, of course, in the early days.
Twizzle,
Absolutely, yeah. Now, I suppose we better have a little look at Two Geeks, Two Beers in action. See what that's all about.
Oh, okay.
Let's have a look.
Oh. What's it going to be?
David McCallum.
Yeah.
He released several albums in the 70s.
This is madness to
But he teamed up with a guy called David Axelrod.
Right.
And he didn't sing necessarily. He
Right.
sort of produced great, brilliant,
genuinely good,
instrumental stuff.
Oh wow!
One of which was a song called "The Edge,"
right,
which was later sampled by Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg.
What?
So the next episode, dum 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 dum. That's David McCallum.
Are you? That is.
I'll play it to you now.
Incredible.
Yeah. This is the original.
This is fascinating.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Now, that blew my socks off when I heard that, because I didn't know that.
You were amazed.
For those kind of great trivia facts, tune into the Two Geeks, Two Beers podcast.
Yeah, incredible. How do you find this stuff then? You just stumbled across it by accident, or?
Yeah, sometimes.
Did you know that, and you were saving
anyway.
it for when?
Yeah.
Well, this is an example of you have a really incredible encyclopedic knowledge of classic music, like you can do every Christmas #1 ever.
Yeah. Right.
Things
great.
like that, which is just not my sphere of knowledge at all.
Yeah, I see, yeah.
But yeah, I remember almost saying it to you in the pub beforehand.
Yeah.
I can't.
Save it.
I got to see your reaction.
On camera.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So where can our viewers and listeners find the Two Geeks, Two Beers podcast?
Oh, twogeeks2beers.com
right.
Is the website, and you can find the podcast anywhere you get podcasts, really.
Spotify and everywhere else.
And either of you on social media that we could give you a follow on?
Yeah,
as well?
the podcast is Two Geeks Cast on variously Facebook and X as it is now, and Threads and Instagram.
Wow, you're all over it.
We're all over it. And then I'm at Morgan Jeffery on Twitter, X. That's probably the best place to find me.
And I'm at Eamesy, which is EAMEZEY.
Excellent. Good work. Now, that noise means it's time for your final game. It's called Quickfire 5. Oh. Now, there are 2 of you. So I'm going to give you a question each, and they require an either-or answer, okay?
Do we get half points again?
No, there's no scoring this time.
Okay.
You'll be relieved to hear. So, you need to choose a base, Morgan Jeffery, Tracy Island or Hawk Nest.
He's going to be mad, but I'm going to say Tracy Island.
Wow. Tom,
Island.
David McCallum as Spectrum's Colonel White or William Shatner as Space Precinct's Captain Podley?
Going to go for McCallum.
Yeah, got to be done. Choose a robot companion, Morgan. Sergeant Major Zero or R2-D2?
I'm Sergeant Major Zero.
Really?
No question.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, okay. Tom, can I order you some lunch? Perhaps you'd like some delicious Simpter Squab from Space Precinct or a bowl of Terrorhawk's Granite Crunchies?
It's going to have to be the Granite Crunchies, isn't it?
You quite often eat cereal for lunch.
I do. And dinner.
Yeah, fine. Now, you're going to have to fight over this one between you. So choose your Spectrum Agent colour from the Dulux colour range. So which of you is which? I need a Captain Jasmine Shimmer and a Lieutenant Raspberry Diva.
Oh, I think you're the Raspberry Diva.
I instantly gravitate towards that.
And I'll Shimmer.
Yeah. It suits you. Well done. Yeah, great. That's your Quickfire 5. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Will you come back next time and we'll talk more geeky stuff?
Check our schedules. Okay. No, yes.
From the Two Geeks, Two Beers podcast, it's Morgan, Jeffery, and Tom Eames.
Myself.
Well done.
Thank you.
Morgan and Tom. Nice of them to drop by. I don't think they had anything else, in their diary, so why not drop by to Slough?
A bit sad you didn't give them any beer, though.
But it is a bit early in the day for that.
I mean...
It is a bit early, Jay.
It's 6 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah. But anyway, you can find their podcast, as they mentioned there, Two Geeks, Two Beers, online, various platforms, and on YouTube, I think.
And if you go back to episode 1...
Oh!
I'm on it.
Oh, yeah, episode 1. They chose to launch with you.
I know. Well, you set the bar low and then you go up from there.
That's true.
It was me and Terrorhawks.
That's where we went wrong, because we had Gary Newman, John Coleshaw, Sophie Aldred, early days.
I know.
Should have saved them.
Yeah.
Well,
hang on. What are you saying? Anyway.
Yeah. Yes. Good, but they'll be back next week, of course, in the second part of their interview with me around this very table.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So thanks to Tom and Morgan for popping by.
Cheers, Tom and Morgan.
Cheers. Now, talking of cheers... I like to give a cheer every time I receive an email from our wonderful Podsterons because they sit down very often at their computer consoles and fingers type out the address podcast@gerryanderson.com, putting something in the subject line and then filling the main body with an email and then hitting send.
Yes, via a secure communication channel.
Would you like to read some out?
Yes, sure.
Right.
This is the voice of the Podsterons.
In strict opposition to my short one from last week.
It was very short.
Today, very long one.
Oh, good.
And I'm going to try and read it in order rather than giving any spoilers by mistake.
Right, by telling us who it's from and then having to say who it's from.
So now the anticipation of who it's from will build.
I wonder who it's from.
I don't know. Let's find out. Hello, Richard, Jamie and Chris.
Hello, stranger.
Yes, hello, stranger. I was excited by the announcement of Stand By for Action 2 and have already booked my tickets.
Well done, whoever you are.
Well done, whoever you are, yes. I have also had the audacity to appoint myself as musical director for the event.
Fair enough.
And feel well qualified for this role for 2 reasons.
Okay.
1, I am a veteran of Stand By for Action 1.
Sure.
2, I am in the top 3% of Barry Gray fans on Spotify.
Really?
Well, there's a claim to fame.
That's great. Top 3%.
Top
I like
3%.
that.
On that basis,
yes,
I would please like to suggest some pieces that would be great additions to the repertoire and to hear performed live. Specifically, as part of a Thunderbirds medley, noting that the interview with conductor George Morton back in Pod 214 discussed the idea of more sweets, which I mentioned a couple of weeks weeks ago in the news.
Yes.
If the concert idea was ever revisited,
More
which
sweets.
it is being. Taking the main theme and its variations as a given, the list is as follows. Titles taken from the Silver Screen soundtrack release. World Exclusive Foiled, Monorail Drama, The Hood and London Airport, Sidewinder, Recovery, KLA Collision, The Launch, Heading for the Sun, Jeremiah, and Thunderbird 4.
Oh, yeah.
More focus on the Ond Martineau and its wide spectrum of sounds, good gag there.
Yes.
And uses would also be right up my street.
Good.
Keep up the great podding and congratulations in advance for Pod 300 coming very soon.
Yeah.
PWORFABSIG.
Yeah, but who's it from?
Paul Davis.
Oh.
That's Les Paul Davis or Les Paul Davis.
It's Les Paul.
On YouTube, and yes, it's Les with a Z. It is.
Les
it's
Paul.
not the French plural.
we
We know now.
need that, really.
Les
Yes.
Paul Davis. Thank you, Paul Davis / Les Paul Davis, not Les Paul Davis.
Oh, great, Paul. Oh, great to hear from you. That's a nice list of some musical items.
Yes, and they're definitely being considered.
Well, excellent. Jay says, hi, Richard, Jamie, Chris. With all the recent talk of arranging much-deserved blue plaque memorials for Gerry, I'm reminded of another potentially suitable place. We've heard that Gerry served in the RAF at what was then RAF Manston, nearby to my home in East Kent. That's Jay, not me.
Good.
There is a small station museum that's still there, but nowhere in it could I find any mention of the fact that Gerry Anderson, a name so many people quickly relate to, ever served at the station. Given the fame to which he rose in the years following his D-mob, I was surprised at this. Jamie, you've often told us how important his RAF service and aviation in general was to your father, and so many guests have testified to this in interviews. It seems fitting that he should be remembered in some way at the museum, especially since that gear-up landing incident at Manston was part of the inspiration for one of his most memorable episodes, Trapped in the Sky. Perhaps you could approach the museum, maybe even to share a photo from his RAF days at the station, and future visitors will be able to make the connection. It just seems right, doesn't it? All the best, Jay.
It does. I'm sending a message to the team right now.
Great, excellent.
To reach out to the RAF Manston
Nice thought.
Was it a store? What do they call it? Station Museum.
Yeah.
RAF Manston. This is fascinating podcasting, isn't it?
By the way, will I get that email? Am I part of the team, or is it a different WhatsApp group?
It's not your area, is it? I mean, if you want to do it, do you want to do it? No. We could go and do a podcast there.
Oh, yes. Copy me in.
Okay. You carry on while I write this email.
Right. Okay, yes. Caleb says, "Hi, Podsterons. I was watching a Thunderbirds episode, Desperate Intruder, and I saw out of the corner of my eye the leg of the Sidewinder. In this scene, Brains and Tintin are chatting to the professor, and the leg of the poor Sidewinder is on our left, holding up a canopy of some kind, and he attached a screenshot to prove it, and it's true. It's there. Hope you find this interesting." Caleb.
Gosh.
Did you find that interesting?
I did, very.
Yeah?
And I sent my email.
Yeah, good. Well done.
Multitasking.
Like it, yeah.
Am I doing this one?
Yeah, go on.
Dear Jamie, Richard and Chris, it's been a good 18 months since my last email. That's a good 18 months, or are you saying a long, proper 18 months? I hope it was a good 18 months for you.
I hope it was a good 18 months, yeah.
Since my last email, so I just wanted to drop you a little message, having finally caught up with the last 4 months of podcasts.
Well done, you.
I've recently moved jobs, and although I'm unable to tell you what I do for a living...
Oh,
we can dream, can't
we?
I can tell you that the 1-hour commute to one of the country's most active Air Force bases has become a great time to catch up. This sounds very exciting. Is he a spy or a
Milton Hall or Lincoln
prototype aircraft test pilot or something? It's great. I can therefore confirm that your voices are occasionally heard whilst moving around the base, whilst said jets from said Air Force base are taking on and off.
Well, they could hear our voice occasionally. Right.
Yes.
Emergency! Evacuate! Evacuate!
Stop.
Oh.
Goodness me.
All right.
If we get in trouble for that, then it's nothing to do with me.
Security.
That was all Richard James. If you get taken away next week, we can replace you with AI, so it'll be fine. I've got to say what a top guy Craig Morris is. Here.
Well, that's true.
To find out that he's loaded ITVX full of Anderson goodness is next level.
Yeah.
Now I can watch Joe 90 from the comfort of my bed first thing on a Saturday morning, just like it's BBC Two in 1994 all over again.
Great.
Sorry, Jamie, but I'm with Chris on that.
Yeah.
It's the definitive Anderson happy place. Well,
fun.
Perhaps for some, that's fine.
Well, yeah.
Good for you. I also want to add a heartfelt thanks for producing the Life Uncharted documentary. Well, thank you very much. That's lovely. It was an absolute superb work from Ben Field, and all the team. And I must say, the personal touch to make such a show brings the fan base in closer to what was already a very warm and tight-knit community. That's a lovely thing to say.
Yeah, that's nice.
Lovely to hear. I can only commend you. See, you should have read this, because then I wouldn't feel bad for praising myself. I can only commend you, all of you, plus the other people working at Anderson Entertainment, for their dedication in keeping us all engaged after so many years.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's the team doing great work.
Yeah.
Before I go...
Oh, yes.
How are we looking for another season of First Action Bureau? And also, if I could make a suggestion for a future guest on the show, I would love to hear Darren Nesbitt sometime, who was fantastic in the UFO episode, The Man Who Came Back.
Yes.
I think he was in The Protectors as well. Anyway, as you were, all the best, Mike.
Well, yes, Darren Nesbitt. I did do a little Google for him, actually.
Yeah.
He's still around, still with us. He's 88. Oof. So I might reach out, see how he's doing.
You could always do a home visit.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah. First Action Bureau, new series. Any news on that, Jamie?
I don't know, Richard. Is there any news on that? Who knows?
Who can possibly know? Because, as we know, nothing is true.
Nothing is true, yes. Maybe something will be true in April.
April, you say?
Maybe, I don't know. Do you think?
Know. Maybe.
Yeah, we'll find out. Anyway, thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And thank you to all our wonderful podsterons who emailed in at podcast@gerryanderson.com. It's always nice to hear from you, because without you, we'd be nothing.
Well, we'd be 30% shorter.
That's true.
Yeah, we'd say 30% less.
Yeah. Right, come on, let's get a move on. Head over to the randomiser.
Is that now?
Yes.
Okay, Chris, good luck. I don't know why I wish him luck every week.
Well, Tom, thank you ever so much for joining us here in Slough today for the Gerry Anderson podcast. And, of course, as you're here for the podcast, you get to push the button on the randomiser.
Very exciting.
You get first preference over Morgan.
Okay, as it should be.
Indeed. Oh, that's it. Well done. Anything you're hoping to see come up today?
I mean, obviously, I love a bit of Terrorhawks, but I like any of the puppet shows.
Even that one?
Yes.
Yes.
Fantastic.
We've got a bit of Supercar today. It's a very early episode of Supercar. It's Amazonian Adventure, in which Mitch the monkey is a bit poorly. Supercar! Boom. So, we welcome back to the Randomiser. It's Supercar. It's Amazonian Adventure, which I believe was the second episode to be filmed. We have this lovely jolly music. It was, I remember on the Supercar VHS releases in the 90s, this was the second episode. We rescued Mitch and Jimmy and Bill in the first episode.
You should know better
Oh
than to get
dear.
behind the jet, even in play.
But I'm so drunk. Yes.
Come on out now.
The first time that Mitch inadvertently got himself behind the engines of Supercar, but not the last time.
Mounting makes just the difference to the thrust on changeover.
Satisfactory. Most satisfactory.
We are talking about science stuff and filling up the running time. Most satisfactory.
Slap back in your seat all the time.
Professor.
From now on, it will be like riding on air.
Well, surely that's just what it is.
Hey, Professor.
Oh, what are you doing here?
Not now, Jimmy.
We are talking about stuff that actually matters.
And I can't make you move.
Oh dear. And the dramatic music is playing, so we know this is a serious situation. Hard to get.
I don't think he's playing at all.
What do you mean, Doc?
Irregular breathing, a muscular restlessness, and I fear he's sick.
Oh dear. Oh no, poor Mitch. There's some very sad, pained noises from David Graham there.
In my opinion, he needs immediate attention. I hope it's not too late.
Oh no. He's got unexplained terminal plot disease. It's very serious. Look at his eyes.
You'll know in a moment, Jimmy. Dr. Beaker is having a word with Mr. Hardwick as a vet.
Ah, Mr. Harpick? Oh, you don't want any of that. Oh, poor Mitch. And I know he is a bit of a hindrance to the Supercar team, but I do like him in the first series as a character, not so much as a plot device.
I've seen Mr. Hardwick off.
What did he say?
With a shotgun.
Not very knowledgeable on the subject. I suppose for a man more conversant with cattle and dogs and horses, that's only to be expected.
Yeah, but what's he gonna do?
Well, for the time being, he suggests this antipyretic to fight the fever.
Do you think it will work?
We're looping this happy music.
Meanwhile, he will be researching into some standard.
I'm also wondering what those bits of paper on the wall are supposed to be. Are they like paper dartboards?
Then we'll just have to nurse Mitch ourselves, won't we, Doctor?
We'll send him to the farm upstate.
What has happened to Dr. Beaker?
Beaker's brain is always at work.
P-L-A Placentalia Plagyhedral.
He's making up words now.
Yes, curious. Most curious.
Hey, Doc,
I like the body language, though, the way he's got his one foot up.
Plasmodium is the name given to certain parasitic organisms found in the blood of patients with quartan and tertian ague.
Well, actually, I didn't know.
Yes, according to Dr. Shaw.
And straight away, I mean, this is only the second episode, but we have this wonderful relationship established between Mike and Beaker, which I think this episode is going to really cement the fact that that is one of the assets of this show going forward.
Especially the fever part.
It goes on to say, the monkeys are sometimes seen to cure themselves by eating, during their wakeful moments, the leaves of the jungle plant known in the local tongue as tlogai.
Tlogai.
There's a picture.
Oh, right, yes.
Yeah. Well, let's go get some.
Yeah, get some. Some tlogai?
You got a better idea?
Well, since you press the point, no.
Yes, I don't believe this was broadcast as the second episode, and I suppose it is a strange choice to go with this as the second episode when you've established with the first episode that it's going to be sort of action-adventure with this supercar and flying here, there and everywhere, and we go from that into a small-scale story about a sick monkey.
But look at it this way. Mitch is one of the outfit, and he's sick. Maybe this is a little further than the corner drugstore, but that's what Supercar's for.
Mike, when did you agree that Mitch was part of the outfit? I thought we were going to sell him and Jimmy to that pet shop in town.
I'm sure we'll find the plant, Professor, because...
Yeah, instantly they've just accepted the fact that Jimmy and Mitch are there for the foreseeable.
I'll be glad to have you along, of course.
It would be better if I come along.
I can't stand being cooped up here with Jimmy.
I'm a scientist. I shall be able to select those areas where the plant is most likely to be found.
Well, you just got yourself a job, Dr. Beaker.
Yay.
What do you say, Professor? Is that okay with you?
Of course, you are right. And I will start preparing supercar for takeoff in half an hour?
Great, Professor. Come on, Dr. Beaker. We'd better get you rigged out.
Hear that, Mitch? They're gonna get you some medicine.
Yay.
You're gonna be okay.
There was a very sudden cut to black there, as if to say, and then it didn't go very well. But of course, this is Supercar. We know they're going to save the day. We know no one's going to die in this episode. Or are they?
Symptomatic of a growing excitement.
Good for you. Line 2.
Again, I love the dialogue in this first series.
All's fine, steadily, Mike. How's Dr. Beaker?
He's fine, Professor. Open up the roof doors.
Also, Beaker's sitting quite low in his chair, and I wonder if that's supposed to reflect the fact that he feels a bit poorly. But I think, yeah, they do establish in this episode that this is Beaker's first flight in Supercar.
South America, here we come.
Yay! So we don't get that shot of Mike sort of lolling his head back up to look at the sky, with a gormless expression on his face, that we sometimes get. It was a piece of stock footage from the first episode.
Mitch?
Oh?
You awake, Mitch?
Leave me alone. Stop talking.
Mike and Dr. Beaker will be back in next to no time.
And in the meantime, I'm here with you. I won't leave your side.
Meantime, you better have some
How
of this
lucky are you?
anti-pie, whatever it is that Dr. Hardwick left.
Oh, I like the sad music as well,
Yeah,
which I suspect may not have been composed for the episode, possibly.
Oh, come on, Mitch. Try and drink some, just to please me.
Base to supercar. Are you receiving me, Mike? What is your course and speed?
Supercar to base. Airspeed 600 knots, altitude 5,000 feet. Course 170. How do you like flying in the supercar, Doc?
Well, I felt on takeoff that my cardiac organ had temporarily altered its location.
You mean your heart was in your mouth?
Precisely. However, the acclimatization period was but short in duration.
Yeah, I think this was broadcast as like the 5th episode.
Sensations concomitant with high-speed air travel.
After several other episodes in which Beaker had flown in Supercar.
Calling base. Switching on video.
There are these little bits of continuity throughout the series that a random episode order doesn't quite do justice to.
Time of arrival?
Don't know for sure, Professor. There's an awful lot of jungle down where we're headed. What do you think, Dr. Beaker? When will we get there?
It would be difficult to say, Mike. We had better steer for the upper reaches of the Amazon River. After that, it would depend upon our finding a suitable landing point.
Yes, this is something that sometimes I find a bit hard to get through with Supercar, especially quite early on. Their journeys to various destinations could take quite a while. Again, I suppose it was a useful way to pad out episodes that were underrunning, potentially. Ah, yes.
I ought to warn you that unless we are extremely fortunate, the terrain is liable to be very damp.
Roger, Doctor. I'll see what we can find. Calling base. I'm looking for a place to set down.
Good luck, both of you.
No, we meant we needed your help to establish such a place to land.
Now selecting vertical flight.
There we go. Coming in for a landing. In the Amazon jungle.
How is he, Jimmy?
Gee, Professor, I don't know.
I've bored him into a coma.
Medicine. He just went to sleep on me.
Oh.
That's how Dr. Beaker said it would be. More sleeping than waking.
He's not gonna die, is he?
Well, Jimmy, you've seen enough of science in action to know that we never can be 100% sure of anything. But with Mike and Dr.
I like as well that they don't immediately go to, no, he'll be fine, it's fine, don't worry. I like that they are honest, but encouraging.
It's only a matter of time before they find this Tlogi plant. We must be patient.
Not Tlogi, Tlogi. Beaker's got his pith helmet on.
Satisfactory. Most satisfactory. Not too much moisture in the air or the soil. A good landing spot, Mike. Really, very good.
I rated 10 out of 10 on landing spots.
It's more than possible. As I recall, the Tlogi plant itself grows in the forks of tree trunks, and therefore should not be too difficult to recognize.
More nice comedy music.
With the utmost dispatch.
Yes, indeed. I would suggest not using very long words, of which I know a lot. Yes, they're being watched by some jungle tribes people, and this is interesting because I gather if it wasn't this episode, and I think there's a high chance it was this episode, there was an episode of Supercar that they were ordered to reshoot scenes for because they had this tribe and the puppets were black, and they were ordered by ITC America to either reshoot the sequence or just not show the episode because of they were afraid that certain stations in the South wouldn't broadcast the episode. So now we have these tribes people with a lot of facial makeup on, face paint. One of whom I suspect might be a reuse of Red Scalp from Four Feather Falls.
That spear doesn't look particularly gratifying.
It is not the...
But I do love the fact that Mike and Beaker just wander up to these very obviously dangerous-looking guys.
Whose facial patterns, if I read them correctly, proclaim
What's going through the minds of these two tribesmen? One of them's a medicine man.
more likely to know the habitat of the Tlogi plant than the medicine man.
He looks a very friendly sort.
Hey, hold on. You can't just...
But it's also an early example of what would later flourish in Thunderbirds, of Americans finding Britishness funny. So we have this sequence of Beaker being being a real Englishman abroad. Just we'll speak slowly to the tribes people in English. Do you speak English?
I reckon we can consider ourselves surrounded.
Oh dear. That's it, Mike and Beaker are captured. They are now in a tent, or a hut, being held prisoner.
Did you notice that arrow, I wonder?
How could I help noticing it? It missed me by inches.
Yes. And we're coming up on a very, very, very dark moment. Not only for this show, but I think for Anderson shows generally.
I did not know they still existed.
Because of something important relating to this tribe. Something they do.
I am sure most scientists believe the tribe extinct. But to find them very much alive here in the 20th century, most interesting.
Headhunters.
They collect heads.
Human head?
I love the of the eyes there. And here we go. We have a collection of severed heads. And they don't dwell on the shot, but their heads are certainly visible in the background for the rest of the story. It's so ghoulish. The fact that most of them look like Beaker, I don't know if there's any way to assume that these are sort of dummy heads or test heads from puppets that then weren't used. I would assume not, but they just, the fact that those are real people within the supercar universe who had their heads cut off. It's just, I love it. It's so...
Tlogi, no.
Gee, Professor.
It's so grim and ghoulish. And you assume that a lot of them would have been similar to Beaker. Hello, old chap, yes. I've come to study you. Oh, no, what are you doing? What are you doing with that knife? Oh, dear.
Supercar. Aren't you worried, Professor?
I mean, even Captain Scarlet wouldn't present you with a shelf of severed heads. Supercar is just like, well, this is a part of life. The sooner children learn about these headhunters, there are the heads again.
It's your head they seem to be interested in, and not mine.
Oh, do you really think so?
Yes.
Well, if I got the drift of that last bit
Because all of them look like you.
It's an interesting line of speculation, Mike.
I'm quite enthusiastic about this. I also like that one of the heads doesn't have eyes.
Dr. Beaker, and I'll tell you why.
Because I don't want to get my head cut off, and you obviously seem to want it.
Now, my idea is to get back to Supercar and bring her over here. And maybe we can impress these head fanciers so much they'll let you go.
Good, Mike. That's a very sound idea.
Yes.
Roger. Though you're taking more of a risk than I am, Doc.
Do we have the Tlo guy?
Be gone.
Look, let us stop being theoretical, Mike. The quicker you are off, the less chance there is of that happening. And since the walls are only woven, I suggest...
And since we've landed in a tribe with only 2 members, we might be all right.
I reckon here is as good a place as any. I should be able to get out on this side without either of them seeing me.
Get out. It's a bit of Graydon Gould's Canadian accent slipping through there.
Roger, pilot.
That was easy. Yeah, any other character would have to sort of, there would be a little bit of a fight, but Mike just strolls out.
So far, so good, I guess.
Yeah.
Try him again, Professor. They can't have been gone this long.
I don't know, Jimmy. I'm beginning to wonder whether the radio system may not have broken down.
Have another try, Professor.
Perhaps I could spend 10 minutes pulling it apart and explaining the names of each component in detail.
Are you receiving me? Base to Supercar. Are you receiving me? Over.
You'll never guess where we are, Professor.
Nothing. I don't understand it.
Supercar to base. Supercar to base. Mike here. Do you read me?
Base to Supercar. Hello, Mike. We read you.
Mike, are you all right?
I also like with this show, and it's quite rare for an Anderson series, that you have a group who aren't sort of answerable to a higher organisation or aren't part of an organisation. These are more like a group of friends, just kind of working together to solve problems. Get out again.
Supercar back to scare the living daylights out of them.
Yes, Mike. Sounds a good idea. How can we help?
Can you think up any way that I can throw a real good scare into them?
Well, we could let Jimmy read his story to them.
But I've got to pick up Dr. Beaker, too.
Yes, that is not so easy. If you land and they see that it is you flying Supercar, they might not be so impressed.
Well, I'll tell you the truth, Professor. They don't seem to be very impressed with me anyway. It's Dr. Beaker they really go for, or at least his head.
I see.
Yes.
Now listen, Mike.
So it's very much the threat here is Beaker could have his head cut off. Which again is just, I don't know. It's so strange that this is in the show.
Sorry, but my colleague had to step out for a moment. He'll be back shortly, I sincerely hope.
Oh, really? Yes. The resemblance is quite uncanny. Oh, dear.
Right, Professor, I get you. It ought to work.
It's got to work, Professor.
Well, it is dangerous, remember. Supercar carries a lot of inflammable fuel on board.
Yes.
But it is worth trying. Hello, Mike.
We'll give it a go.
If you switch on Clearview to intercom, maybe we can see what is happening and give you advice on the spot.
Good idea.
I love the comedy inherent in this as well. The tribespeople getting more and more excited, and Beaker just being so patient in his explanation of what he's actually there for, what he wants. I love the dancing. I think it's the medicine man there as well. I was also thinking as well, this is the first jungle set you would have seen in an Anderson series. I suppose it must have been a nice change for the people making the sets to have had, to know that they were now working on a series where there was weekly variety of sets, as opposed to Four Feather Falls, where it was just every week you knew you were going to have the saloon, the sheriff's office, the high street, Main Street, and similar.
Never mind. It's all on a good cause.
So I would like to think that they sort of enjoyed the challenge of that.
Okay, fire one.
Did you hear that? I said, did you hear that? I believe you're in a trance.
And the drummer's getting a real good sound out of that drum with his one hand.
You're making me feel quite seasick.
Fire two. She's not lifting, Mike.
I reckon the ground's a bit soggy from the waterfall.
Oh, yes.
Try out in a minute.
Be careful, Mike.
Here's another important part of early supercar, the fretting. We have to discuss whether this plan will work, or what we will do if it doesn't work, and why it might not be working. But no. Hey! Supercar has finally taken off.
Shortest possible contact, or you'll blow every fuse in the car.
They'll be so cross.
Oh, never mind. I'm plugging them into the auxiliary outlet now. I wish I had 3 hands.
A rare bit of animation for the series. Normally, you would only get that kind of animation in Supercar to animate the flashes of guns. But it's enough to distract the headhunters.
In any case, it would be a pity to miss any chance of impressing these gentlemen.
Gentlemen.
How many more of these this power system can stand? Better save my powder for the next one. Hey, Professor, is there any way I can make a lot of smoke?
You could try running the engines on takeoff mixture instead of normal.
Well, sure I could. That's it. Rich it is.
Okay. See, in Thunderbirds, they would just have a button marked black smoke, and that would... But in Supercar, we have to have this, well, you can do this, maybe if we do that.
Bring your fires to my command.
This is, again, a lovely touch, and some great early Beaker character stuff.
Mumbo jumbo. Oh, spirits of the forest, send your devils to speak with me.
Ah, yes. He's trying to take responsibility for what Mike is doing in Supercar.
It is I, Beaker, the wise, the powerful.
They're devilishly handsome.
That was a jolly good one.
Oh, they're terrified. Well said.
Professor, it's working just great.
Oh. That's it. Mike's arrived to rescue Beaker.
Now I have succeeded in...
and I love this next line from him.
Your attention. Perhaps we can have a little service around here. Hello, guy. And make it snappy.
Ah.
It's what?
Again, as much as I said it's a key episode in establishing the Mike-Beaker relationship. It's a key episode in establishing that Beaker is the star of the show.
Stay, my wrath. But let us behave ourselves.
Yes, they've given him some Tologai.
Return in my sky chariot and wise you up.
It's amazing how quickly they go from Beaker as this, very serious professor at the start of the episode. By the end of this episode, he's having a bit of fun here.
I don't know what we'd have done without you, Dr. Beaker.
Oh, I can't imagine life without Mitch.
Say thanks, Mitch.
Yay, Mitch is feeling much better. Thanks to the Tologai.
Times to have Mitch scampering around the workshop again. Remind me to keep my laboratory door shut.
That's not because of Mitch, that's aimed at you, Jimmy. Well, that was Supercar, Amazonian Adventure, and I've always rather enjoyed that one. I suspect that it might not be a favourite of many people. I think possibly some people prefer the Master Spy and Zarin episodes where we have a clear villain as such, whereas here the enemy is time and these odd little tribespeople who are in their way quite sweet, but also a key episode for establishing Beaker, how important he is for the series, and just this supremely understated horror element for those severed heads on the shelf with the tribespeople. Oh, lovely stuff. Very dark, but very lovely.
Oh, Mitch the monkey.
Poor Mitch.
Oh.
I mean, poor Chris.
Yeah, poor Chris.
But yeah,
what do you think of Supercar?
It's of its time, shall we say?
Okay,
Is that
fine.
right?
Yeah. I think that covers a multitude of sins.
It absolutely does. But you've got to, as with all these things, there's the context.
Yeah.
You cannot watch it as if it was made yesterday.
No, absolutely
in
right.
2024.
No, exactly. That's right. Yeah.
So,
well, I wonder what he'll watch next week.
I don't know, Richard. I suspect it'll be another random episode of a randomly chosen Gerry Anderson series.
I think you might be right.
Yeah.
Because it's the randomizer.
That's the format of the...
Yeah. Well, you'll have to join us next week for Pod 299.
299?
One shy of 300. Did you ever think it would last this long?
100? No, I really didn't when we were having it. Did we discuss it when we were having an ice cream?
Oh, we've had this conversation before.
I know,
yeah.
but I always
we did,
forget.
yeah,
Was
yeah.
it an actual ice cream?
Yeah, it was an actual ice
Do you know,
cream.
that was before I became lactose intolerant.
Right. And on that bombshell...
No, just lamenting that we can't recreate
No one wants to know about your...
Yeah, okay, fine. Moving on.
Yeah. We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
Lactose intolerant, that's a shame, isn't it?
I know, because I love
When
cheese.
was the last time you had some cheese then?
Well, I've got lactase tablets, but they're only about 80% effective. So
80%? Does that mean you're still 20% intolerant, or does it only work 80% of the time?
It's either 80% effective or 80% of the time, and it's really not worth it for when it doesn't work.
Oh,
it's horrible.
Gosh.
I know. I used to be intolerant of people who said they were lactose intolerant.
Yeah,
and now
I bet you were.
I'm very sorry.
I bet you were.
Because it's.
Yeah, now you know.
Oh, it's terrible.
Shall I tell you what I'm intolerant to?
Please do. Can't wait.
I'm looking at him.
There might be some tablets of that.
Goodbye. That was an Anderson Entertainment production.